Freestyle the news. Back up on the air right now. Motherfuckers out here chirping from their chair right now. They been trying to catch you looking for a dare right now. Stare right now, hoping that you scared right now. Yeah, pipe down. Fuck up what you wear right now. Share right now. I've been waiting years for this. I'm just too prepared right now. All these motherfuckers saying trying to speak is like a risk until they fuck around and find that stupid name up on a list. Oh shit, y'all been trying to style off a threat, then rehire everybody that you fired off a bet. Tell them fuck out of the show unless they fire off a check. Y'all keep racking up the business and you tired off a debt. That's funny. Food stamps cut, fuck the numbers on it. Got the aid appropriation lining up your pockets. Cross you up like they was Viper and they jumping off and spinning off the top when they be lying like a helicopter. Going heavy on the Tylenol. Either I just got the tism or the fever gone. I'm feeling swaggy like another Justin Bieber song. I'm trying to battle like Paul Thomas to Anderson. Raw dog on the camera, shots fired. America hot wired to burst. So to talk wild and prejudice. Profile the app to the algorithm, your emphasis. Tank all of the tracks till your TikTok is just X again. Whoa, another book tour with a protest. All these hot takes, everybody got a whole set. Culture war heavy, get the medals off a Hexeth. Coming after Comey so his homies feel the next threat. Bitch Todd shifting, he thinking he slide with it. He about to collide with it like Tom when the bribes hitting. Shut up and go live with it. I don't care about the major ops. They just fucking soft like Trump with the escalator. Stop. So too soon? Oh my god, did your free freeze get hard? Oh, it stopped? It's stairs now? The fuck? This episode about to be all over the place because I just did a 17-minute story and then I had to cut it because it was no longer relevant and a bunch of news broke on Sunday. So I'm going to do that. Here's me from the past. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching Freestyle the News. If you like what you heard, please slam that like button with the seismic energy and then launch off the ground with your jet boots as you spin into a flame kick and then quickly push down your electricity knuckles and then shock that like button into submission. And then leave a comment on your favorite bar. See Viper in Street Fighter 6 looks incredible. What a baddie, and also what a faithful recreation of one of the most interesting characters from Street Fighter 4. She looks so good here, man. Street Fighter 6 has been cooking with its character designs, and her song is a bop. It's been a fairly interesting and chaotic week with Jimmy Kimmel coming back on the air, and then shortly after, Nexstar and Sinclair being like, we're not gonna show this, and then being like, actually, we are gonna show it. With that being said, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, I do have a little bit of news. So, hey, you remember that show that I had mentioned possibly doing a thing where I compare like political strategy to strategy in things like fighting games where you're trying to outsmart your opponent and implement things to kind of get the upper hand and advantage even when you're at a disadvantage? Well, that show, which everybody wanted to call Comeback Mechanic, I did. I actually recorded an episode of it. It should premiere early next week. I'm still working on the graphics and everything like that. It's really fun. And I wrote that alongside the new episode of Griff Watch, which I'm probably going to also record next week so we can finally get back up to doing those again. And one last little bit of info. Like I said last week, the Freestyle the News from the last few weeks is going to be going up on Spotify. I just submitted it yesterday. I know, a little late, but it should be up there. If not now, then Monday or Tuesday. And if you're wondering personally, well, what about all of the other Freestyle the News before that, like in between that gap that you had? They aren't on Spotify. Where are they? Well, look, a lot of those licenses to those beats are a little bit harder to clear because it's been so long, right? So I've decided to kind of release all of them on SoundCloud and Bandcamp for free. So hey, all that's on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. You can download it in the link below. And then also, hey, the new project going up on Spotify is also on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. So download it, add it to your library. You can listen to it whenever you want, on whatever you want. And also, if you do want to kind of support the show, you can donate to us on Bandcamp. It really does help the channel, and we're trying to hire more editors and increase the amount of like videos we get to put out and the work that we get to give our editors and do more content. But yeah, go check that out. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get into this breakdown. All right, I'm back, bitch. It's me from the future. We don't have flying cars or GTA 6 yet. It's fine. All right, we were originally going to do a deep dive into Kamala Harris's book tour and all the fucking crazy reactions around it, right? But that's now on TooSoonCrew.com because we have a couple more pressing stories to talk about. So let's start actually with the breaking news that happened Sunday morning. Eric Adams drops out of the New York mayoral race. Yesterday, it was reported that Eric Adams, the incumbent mayor of New York City and guy who, if he says Ole in the mirror 3 times, she appears behind him and destroys him on national radio, well, that guy has dropped his re-election bid for mayor of New York City. This is a sizable moment for quite a few reasons. Obviously, Zoran Mamdani's campaign has captured national attention almost as much as Adams' own corruption scandals. Like all of them, he's got so many fucking corruption scandals, it's crazy. But it's also significant because of how crazy this race has been, right? With Cuomo staying in after the massive upset he suffered to Mamdani back, quite a few months ago, up until now, it's been a 4-way race between Mamdani, Cuomo, Curtis Siwa of the Guardian Angels, and Eric Adams in fourth. Single digits. Great job, incumbent mayor. The writing was on the wall here, right? Adams has had so many poorly handled press conferences and, again, insane corruption scandals during his tenure. He's got so much unfavorability from all of that him running as an independent was both shocking and not shocking, but also icing on the cake for everybody he pissed off. Not only that, since the Trump administration came in, Adams had been sidling up to Trump so he could possibly get a pardon or get helped out. And there were reports about a month or so ago that Trump had offered Adams a position if he dropped out of the race. Now, to be fair to Adams, I don't think him dropping out yesterday was him necessarily caving to Trump. Again, like the writing was on the wall. It was statistically impossible. He was doing horribly in this race, embarrassingly so. But look, aside from Adams' intentions here, right? More so, I think a lot of people saying, oh, great, Adams finally realized that he couldn't beat Zoran, are kind of missing the forest for the trees. Like, this isn't actually 100% great news for Mamdani necessarily. But if you look in the context of all of this, actually Adams voters split for Cuomo, right? With Cuomo getting a bump from 24% to around 30% according to polls where Adams is excluded. But even in those polls, Mamdani is still leading by like 45%. And you've got people like Curtis Siwa who are also siphoning a lot of that support away from Cuomo. I also just realized it's Curtis Sliwa, not Siwa. I apologize to Curtis. You can call me Zaid if you ever hear my name, just him. Now, Mamdani is still commanding in his lead and his campaign is only growing stronger, both in terms of endorsements and strategy. But a lot of Cuomo supporters are suddenly feeling like, oh my gosh, we have a second win. Not that this couldn't be, but Cuomo has to overcome not only a lack of numbers, but his own fucking lackluster favorability amongst the electorate. Like, there's a substantial lack of energy and creativity in that campaign and how it's operating. So it's up against a lot, but also, what the fuck are these two people doing at this point? Like, what are we doing, guys? Watching Schumer and Jeffries like tiptoe around this fucking issue is so embarrassing in so many ways. And I'm just gonna say it again because I think everybody makes this about Israel. It's not just about the AIPAC angle with these two. Like, it's a bit myopic to think of it that way. Mamdani has a lot in common with politicians like Obama in 2008, who was also thought to be a long shot, progressive upstart and disruptor with how the Democratic Party did politics, even though he was considered a talented young guy. The warning lesson from Obama's rise was that the Democratic establishment at the time had a massive sea change in terms of how things ended up being run. Like, the entire operation substantially shifted once he won the primary. And now, if you also notice on Too Soon Crew for the thing I posted about Kamala's book tour, I mentioned that since 2012, a lot of the Biden wing was actually commanding the party direction because Obama needed them strategically in order to get anything passed. So they ended up taking a lot of power during that time. But now that wing is looking a lot like the wing that lost, trying to shove Obama out of the way during his ascent and primary against Hillary Clinton. And also, again, I am not glazing Obama. Look, objectively, his rise was a seismic shift in American politics, and a pretty analogous one to what's happening with the Democratic Party right now after a bruising defeat from a candidate that really didn't take a stance on a major global conflict to suddenly, oh wow, Somebody actually touting policies that people have been wanting to talk about for so fucking long. Look, Schumer and Jeffries don't like Mamdani, or at least the ideas and the methodology around him they feel are going to shift the party away from orthodoxy, because they think that everything is going to eventually work and it's going great. It's not. I think also the fact that Jeffries said some weirdly supportive words about Adams while not coming out to endorse the fucking candidate for the Democratic Party that's running in this fucking race, the one that won the primary. I think you got to figure out, man, at what point, what side of that 2008 metaphor you want to be on. Because right now, I think you've politically sold the farm in a lot of ways, and everybody's seeing it. But look, we'll have to see how this all works out. Mamdani responded to Adams dropping out. His team clearly had a plan in place in case this happened. Look, the race isn't over. Work still needs to be done. Let me know what you think in the comments. Very quickly, hey, what do you think of the new studio? It's great, right? I like it because when I talk, I don't feel like I'm in a fucking cave. Building this studio in general has been pricier than I expected. Now, whether it's panels or this carpet or some of the other tech I'm getting later in the week, sometimes you just need that one upgrade that levels things up significantly. Saving for new gear takes time, and when it comes to content creation, sometimes you just need to take the leap. Like when I picked up the A7S III, which you're seeing me record from now, right? It was a huge investment when I got it. Paying it off took time, but that whole experience pushed me to think harder about how I manage big purchases. Credit in America sometimes feels like a weird reverse hellscape, and choosing like the right card does matter, and that's where today's sponsor, FinanceBuzz, comes in. FinanceBuzz is a comparison and content site that makes it simple to explore credit card benefits. Like, do you want points for flights in a hotel, or do you want 0% APR so you can make that big purchase, or do you want cash back on groceries and gas? FinanceBuzz lays all of those things out. Travel, 0% APR, cash back, balance transfer, so you can quickly see what fits best for you. If the credit card you're using isn't doing that for you, well, it's time to compare what else is out there. It's an amazing tool to find and compare different cards and the perks they offer, so you can actually find one that fits better for your lifestyle. So look, if you want a card that works better for you, go to tryfinancebuzz.com/Zed or scan this QR code right now to see today's top credit card offers. It's free, quick, makes it easy to see which card benefits fit your goals. I personally love cashback and 0% APR cards myself, but look, it's free, it's easy, and it's a great way to actually have a credit card benefit you instead of just being this pit you sink money into. Go to tryfinancebuzz.com/Zed or scan the QR code and check it out. All right, back to the breakdown. Okay, couple more stories before we get to the end. Let's jump into TikTok's sale. If you haven't heard the news over the past few days, Donald Trump has just facilitated the sale of the majority stake in TikTok to a consortium of different investors in the United States. Trump announced this last week and also silently leaked that some of those investors are people like the Murdochs and Larry Ellison. Great. Also the Abu Dhabi royal family, because fucking why not? Just everything to make you feel uneasy. Hey, I heard the guy who like punched you in the stomach in 3rd grade also is gonna be an investor, just to sweeten the deal. But look, Trump also just recently signed an executive order to say that the TikTok deal will comply with the rule that they have and satisfy the divestiture standard so TikTok can remain in the United States. But he also valued the company at $14 billion, which is actually mad fucking low, because most projections and people who know about this stuff value TikTok at around 40 billion. And just because the hits keep on coming, it's said that Oracle, the company under Larry Ellison, will control the TikTok algorithm. Great. Now, that has sent a lot of fears across the creator spectrum on TikTok of what that will mean for the Trump administration and conservative media thumbing the scale here. And I'm going to say this, I think my views on TikTok have evolved quite a bit as somebody who was really up on the app since it blew up a few years ago. I haven't posted there all that much, although you should follow me because I still do post there and I'm trying to post more. But the last few years I've been kind of just focused on this show and this platform. But TikTok has evolved quite a bit over the last 6 years. And to be honest, the algorithm has more and more kind of structured itself as a parallel to Twitter or X in terms of discourse, with, you know, stitches and, you know, quote retweets kind of being in the same vein or like cousins of each other, you know, which means it's a very aggressive, polarized, and at times fringe platform for political discussion. If you take a look at a TikTok video, almost any of them with a hot take, almost always like the first 3 comments are going to be something that explicitly agrees with that take and shits on everything else. Like, how the fuck could you think anything differently? Like, if you go on right now and say something wild like Tim Allen murdered a dog in 1970 and lied about it, and there was a court case, which, by the way, didn't happen. This is me lying completely. But if you made a TikTok about that, almost always, like within the first 3 likes, the comments would be like, you know what? I've always hated Tim Allen. I think I heard about this before. You know, now that I think about it, Tim Allen has never been seen in the same room with a dog before. I mean, yeah, that one movie, but like, he was getting paid by Epstein. All of that is designed to play with your confirmation bias somewhat, which is kind of how Twitter is designed as well. And if you looked at Twitter as an example of what happens when you push a specific type of political bias onto a platform, it's not really good for that platform. We were following the numbers on Twitter for quite a while as Threads and Blue Sky came into prominence. And the truth is, while a lot of the news media is still primarily on Twitter, Twitter has kind of lost its monopoly in terms of like text-based random brain droppings of conversation. There's now substantial rival presence on both Threads and Blue Sky in terms of content and community. Threads is particularly popping, mainly because they just surpassed the daily active user count against Twitter, which should tell you a lot. And look, plenty of creators are trying to branch off into different platforms or just planning on leaving if the algorithm changes as badly as it might, right? I think there will be more community guidelines violations for left-wing content and some unequal implementations of what the algorithm prioritizes. And some very like specifically right-tinged ads people will get like on Twitter. But I don't think the left-wing content ecosystem there will disappear entirely. It's just gonna feel as chaotic and fucking crazy as Twitter does. But look, I think that the one silver lining is the alternatives to TikTok don't have those pressures necessarily on them. Those systems like Reels and YouTube Shorts are probably going to become more popular. To be honest, Reels is already a pretty serious competitor to TikTok, and Shorts is no slouch either, with YouTube continuing to grow and add more features to Shorts. So look, I'll be very honest, I do love TikTok, and we're planning to make more of a push on that platform because I think it's a great platform, right? But it's not the only game in town, and more of its flaws are coming up as time goes on. And if the scale tips unevenly in a very polarized way on that platform, it may not be even a game people want to play anymore. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, lastly, yeah, it's me again from the future. Hi, I'm wearing an Android 17 shirt. Let's talk about Donald Trump and his national security protocol, or whatever the fuck this thing is. So in the middle of the Comey indictment, Donald Trump saying Portland is now apparently a war zone. I don't know why. I mean, I guess the latte foam art isn't hitting, or Fred Armisen isn't doing another season. Trump went ahead and signed a new national security protocol memorandum. Now, Ken Klippenstein did a whole thing on it. I'll link to the Substack below. But there's a lot of fear around this memorandum specifically, and some stuff I agree and disagree with Klippenstein on. And something to clarify in terms of everything that this entails. Now look, Trump signed this thing on September 25th, and just to clarify what a national security presidential memorandum is, a long fucking name, it's a directive. It's similar to Obama's PPDs. A lot of other presidents have done similar things. It's a note that kind of sets up the direction of what the people who are under the executive branch should be focusing on. And like I said, plenty of other presidents have done this. Obama did it for climate policy. Bush did it for Afghanistan. Ford, Reagan, and Bush 1 did it for Iran-Contra. How did that work out? I'm sorry I'm bearing the lead here, but here's the issue with this one specifically. This memorandum that Trump issued is supposed to be against political violence and combating what it says is domestic terrorism. It directs agencies to do whatever they can to disrupt, disassemble, and combat networks of organized political violence, which I assume Trump thinks are Antifa or whatever. Like, the whole thesis of this is that all of the political violence and disruptions are part of an organized group, you know, or NWA. If you show them like an NWA record, they're gonna be like, oh, where the fuck did those guys come from? But here's the other specific issue. NSPM 7 also identifies any of the following things as indicators of people who would commit or engage in political violence. These indicators include anti-Americanism, anti-Christianity, anti-capitalism, support for the overthrow of the US government. Look in a fucking mirror, I beg you, you soggy bag of melted cheese. Extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender. Are you following the pattern here? Not only are these very vague and culture war tinged to the fucking brim, they're obviously very scary, right? With all of these being conflated as indicators of political violence and domestic terrorism. Saying anything, somebody would be like, oh, that's anti-Christian, even if it isn't, right? But if somebody's like, oh, that's anti-Christian, that now is domestic terrorism? The fuck? And look, these broad agency directives asking the IRS and the DOJ to find ways to disrupt nonprofits through investigations or stripping them of their tax-exempt status if they qualify under these reasons are so fucking worrying. But made worse when the directive seems to ask these agencies to act preemptively, right? Which is, what is this, fucking Minority Report? Which also brings into question the separation of powers in all of this. Bypassing Congress, and obviously in this, the very real fear, or honestly fact, is that Donald Trump is using these institutions to prosecute his political enemies. You've got creators like Hassan Piker mentioning that this is textbook fascism, to conflate speech or ideas of disagreement as automatic political violence or domestic terrorism so they can use the power of the federal government to attack and destroy people from the opposition party. I'm still not over the anti-Christianity shit or the anti-capitalism shit too. Very like, fuck, I'm not even kidding, Iraq war vibes. Same kind of fucking directive, like we're in a crusade, how fucking dare blah. A few days ago, Brendan Carr was like, oh no, that was a misunderstanding with the Kimmel thing. We weren't like threatening freedom of speech. Here's a memorandum literally threatening any speech or thought after, by the way, years of these motherfuckers yelling 1984 all the time on the television on Fox and OAN or whatever the fuck. But look, I want to clarify what this thing is historically and what it isn't, because I know a lot of people are very nervous and freaking the fuck out over it. So listen, please, first off, this memorandum is an internal policy directive. It's an internal memo, right? It's not an executive order. This isn't a law. Like I said, it's similar to the PPDs that Obama did during his administration. It's a directive to tell the agencies under the executive, hey, just focus on this, right? Which again, still fucking scary that they're telling them to focus on this. But the one thing to keep in mind is this isn't new. Trump has been doing literally this since his first presidency in 2017, right? He attacked the media as the enemy of the people. He tried to use the federal government to bear down on his political enemies. It is definitely more aggressive this time around, but the main thing I want to focus on is how this information was also leaked or disseminated. It wasn't leaked. It was dropped, kind of shadow dropped on the White House website, and it features all of the hallmarks of Trump pressuring people and signaling, trying to play into fears to look like the strong man he wants you to perceive him to be. And again, I'm not saying this isn't a threat or isn't scary, right? The way he's conflating speech with political violence, right? But this was something that he's already been doing. The memorandum doesn't actually change much. It doesn't give him any new powers. It doesn't change any laws or give the agencies under him any more leeway, right? This is what they were already building around, and this is how they have been operating for the last 6 months, which means this memo is there to specifically fucking scare you. Now, it is fair to say that fascist regimes do like to use shit like this in their steps towards authoritarianism. And even in this case, apparently saying something is fascistic is now invoking violence, according to the dumbest fucking people imaginable. But the goal of this memorandum isn't to create new laws or crimes, because it doesn't, right? It isn't even necessarily to scare you. That's just a side effect or a method it's using to get what it wants. It's to normalize enforcement against speech in opposition to this administration's priorities. And that's where you need to focus and organize. This has happened before. We've said umpteen things about George W. Bush and the post-Iraq war vibes. This is 100% this. But also, this happened with Richard Nixon and McCarthyism, right? And also during the war on drugs under Reagan, although that was like way more, that was insanely more aggressive. There are specific tactics you can use to beat this, but they need to be specific, because the administration is counting on certain reactions so they can escalate their agenda and powers further. Again, just to remind you, fascist regimes need some level of popularity to take over, right? In Germany, in Hungary, like they need some level of people liking their shit in order to exert their full control. Okay, here's what you specifically can do, all right? Number one, political and narrative framing immediately. Talk about the overreach here. Counteract their narrative of like, oh, they're fighting political violence. No, they're using it as a scapegoat to stifle speech. Speak about it. Openly engage in discussion whenever you can, right? To make their net look so small, they can't really crack down on the dissent that they want to. Because right now their net is kind of small with the proliferation of social media and how loud your voice can get there. It's one of the biggest reasons why the Jimmy Kimmel thing backfired on the Trump administration, and now he's trying to use this tactic to try to subvert it back. During the Iraq War, the civil rights movement, anytime a stove has been too hot to touch, speaking openly helps grow that dissent, right? And stop the administration from trying to build their soft power to take more actual power from people and their civil liberties. Hey, dissent has even worked for movements that hate people who look like me. So, you know, fucking I guess. So that's important. Number two, I cannot stress this enough. Do not get violent. You are a fucking idiot if you think now that's gonna work. It's fucking dumb. Bro, authoritarians purposely put this kind of bait out because they want some sort of specific violence to happen so they can tell whatever sliver of the public that will possibly go along with them, hey, actually, you're under attack. Give us more of your freedoms and liberties so we can just go hard on that shit, all right? And that's where lines get crossed. The fact so many people spoke out right after Kirk's death and made it clear that they weren't about political violence, even though the Trump administration tried to amplify and scapegoat that, right? That's why the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing ended up backfiring heavily, because that became the indicative example of like, whoa. What are we saying is violence? Just normal dissent is violence? Trump also had his worst polling week ever this week too because of that. There are multiple points over the last week where they have tried to make this narrative that there is a one-sided frame of political violence happening and that they must clamp down on it. That's fucking bait. Again, Trump's soft power is weak here, and that's why he's pulling this. People who are doing power grabs like this rely on political infighting and splinters, violence so they can justify disproportionate response, and people waiting it out and being quiet and being too scared to talk. This is the moment to call out the Trump administration. Be open with your speech, but also be focused on where your speech is going. Be specific in your semantics, because motherfuckers are going to take everything out of context deliberately. Make them look stupid for doing so. But again, it's not over, right? It is definitely scary. It is definitely an attack on speech and opposition. So you gotta get fucking louder, because every time that's happened, they've lost. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's our show. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I also saw one battle after another. It was really, really great. You should go check it out. Hopefully I'll do a review on it if you haven't seen it yet. Go check out the songs on Spotify or go to Bandcamp and SoundCloud and grab some. We'll be back next week with Comeback Mechanic and a bunch of new stuff. Anyway, my name is Tabani. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Let's go!